The Bear plays this really fun game between intentional lighting that is perfectly designed and this documentary style, almost sloppy look with sources coming from everywhere and the feeling that you're really in the middle of the action. And somehow in the midst of all that chaos, they're able to achieve what I honestly think is a cinematic masterpiece and tell an incredible story on top of that. But how do they do it? That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. We're going to go through the three main things that I think make the Bear. And then at the end, we're going to talk through a budget alternative of how you could achieve a similar look to the Bear. So let's talk about the fun stuff first, camera and lenses. Now, when it comes to the camera and lenses being used on the Bear, the cinematographer Andrew actually opted for the Alexa Mini LF, and he paired that with the Panavision H series lenses. Now, I don't know a ton about the Panavision H series lenses, but Andrew seems to, because he says he knows these lenses so well, it's as if he owns them. He uses them on so many different projects. But one thing I do know about these H series lenses is that they create this really nice soft look, but they still can get tack sharp in the middle, and you can see a lot of that in the eyes in the frames from the Bear. So you get this really nice soft look that gives the skin a creamy feel almost, but then you're still not missing out on that tack sharp detail. And that's what creates the A-cam package. But the series wasn't just a one camera shoot. They actually had a second B camera that was almost like a alternate cinematography unit. And that package was actually made up of the Alexa Mini LF again, but then a Panavision 11:1 zoom. This is where all of these super crisp close-ups come from. You see, the A camera is busy shooting the main scene, everything that's going on, the script, if you will. And then the B camera is this other unit, second unit kind of vibe, just getting close-ups, transitions, zooms, all that. And I think that creates a really unique look for the whole series. You've got these really nice, very thoughtful shots, and then that's combined with these crazy zooms and, you know, really tight shots or really crazy kind of tracking shots that the B camera is picking up as well. And when you edit those two together, you get the Bear. And I think when you shoot this way, it allows for a very thoughtful process. You're not being distracted to shoot all the tiny inserts and close-ups as an A-cam operator and cinematographer. So you just get to shoot the story, and that's the main thing that you have to focus on. But then you're giving the power to a B-cam operator, second unit cinematographer, to get some close-ups, some inserts, a lot of the food shots, like all sorts of things. You're basically doubling up every time you say action. And it's actually that approach that dictates the rest of the production and playbook that we're going to go into when it comes to the shooting and execution of the Bear. But even knowing the camera setup and how they're filming all of it, it still doesn't explain how they're able to get some of these absolutely beautiful images in a kitchen where there's kitchen stuff everywhere. There's tons of lights all over the ceiling, and the camera's moving 360 degrees. Like, there's no part of the kitchen that can't be seen. So how are they achieving this? Well, the filmmakers are doing something incredibly clever. They're actually building their lighting into the production design. And this is a very common thing when you are needing your camera to be able to move 360 degrees. But it's also, you can see it in stuff like Star Wars or other films like that, where there is so much visible light in the production design. A lot of times, the filmmakers are able to actually get rid of all the film lights and just build those lights into the production design. And then all those lights are controlled by a lighting board. And so you can literally just be like, hey, give me this corner, bring it down 50%, or turn it up all the way, cut these lights on this side of the wall, that sort of thing. And you're able to basically change the entire lighting look without setting up another light stand. In fact, there's very few, if any, light stands actually used in the set. They talk about having a very large source outside of the set that they built that signifies the sun, but other than that, it's pretty much all built into the production design. And that's how you can have this somewhat chaotic feel. You've got these two cameras running around a kitchen set, but at the same time, you're able to say, hey, we're going to be in this corner for having this conversation. I want these lights off. And you're actually able to create some amount of contrast and depth in your image. I mean, you can see it in all the frames from The Bear season 3. It's everywhere. In fact, you can see it in every season of The Bear. And it honestly makes for a really unique process. I'm honestly a huge fan of it. But even with this beautiful camera setup, something that's incredibly efficient, and an incredibly efficient lighting setup, that efficiency alone is not going to give you the quality of a show that is The Bear. You're gonna still be lacking if you don't have a story or some sort of like symbolism in the cinematography. But that's where this next element comes in, and I think it's an element that if you pay attention, you will see it throughout the entire 3 seasons of the show, but especially in this 3rd season. You see, as we ended season 2, Carmy was stuck in this huge walk-in fridge, and it's there where he ruins a lot of relationships and everything kind of collapses in on himself. And he's left in this fridge. It's blue, it's cold, and we start season 3 kind of in a similar way. Carmy is in this blue environment, in this cold place. We are commonly seeing him back in his home, which is very, very blue, signifies what he's lost when it comes to Claire and some of the other relationships that he's broken. But also when he's in the kitchen lighting is always cold. He's very rarely lit by an actual warm light. But then you contrast that with the warm, inviting atmosphere of the dining area of the restaurant. And you see that there are people and characters in this story that are like trying to make the most of the situation and trying to make an incredible restaurant. But Carmy's still stuck over here, the place that he has domain, the kitchen, just broken and like just on the struggle bus. And that cold lighting tone so clearly illustrates that. I mean, you could even see this shot right here, which is like just a beautiful example of this. But there's plenty of instances where the dining area looks so warm, so pleasant, but at the same time, you've got the chaos and the almost depression of the kitchen that's illustrated by this cool lighting tone. And so I think really it's the symbolism of this lighting contrast and this color contrast that honestly allows the cinematography to put a huge emphasis on the story. And while there are plenty of other things like the hectic camera movement, the inserts and the extra B-roll of the food, the shallow depth of field that we shoot with so commonly, and these beautiful like character portraits, not to mention the zooms and transitions and everything like that. If you don't have elements of your cinematography that enhances your story, then you're missing the mark, I think, as a cinematographer. I think that's the only point of being a cinematographer, is to enhance the story. Yes, you want everything to look beautiful and you want to like strive for that as much as possible. But if at the end of the day, your cinematography doesn't enhance the story, then what's the point in the first place? How can we recreate The Bear with no money? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. So first things first, let's go back to the camera and lens package. Now, yes, they're shooting on an Arri Alexa Mini LF, but the big point that I want you to remember about that is large format sensor. It's that full frame sensor. And I'm not saying that you can't get shallow depth of field if you're not using a full frame sensor. That's not the case. It's not accurate. But I am saying that you can achieve that shallow depth of field that's similar to what they're getting shooting on any full frame camera. So you could use an FX3, you could use the Blackmagic Cinema Camera 6K or the Pixis. Anything that gives you that full frame look is gonna get you on the right track to replicating the look of The Bear. But then we get to the difficult part. We suddenly need some Panavision 8 series lenses that have a creamy, soft look, but still get tack sharp in the middle. And for this, I think it gets a little bit more nuanced, and we have to be honestly more picky with how we accomplish this goal. I think our best bet is going to be looking for some modern vintage-like lenses. So a great example of that is the SLR Magic Micro Primes or APO Primes. I'm not sure exactly the title, but I'll put them right here. And these have often been compared to Cooke lenses and basically a budget Cooke lens. Now, by no means are they going to capture the same magic as those lenses or the Panavision H series lenses, but they do possess a very soft look. And I think if you're shooting a higher resolution and you've got these lenses going, you're going to get that soft look with still some kind of like tack sharpness to the image. I also think you could look into the DZO Film R-less lenses, the new ones, or even the DZO Vespid Primes. I think both of those would be a decent option. I've seen some stuff on the Mikey cinema lenses, and those seem to have a very soft look as well. But you could also go with something a little bit simpler and probably a lot more affordable, like some Canon FD lenses. If you go on eBay, you can find a full set of FD lenses and you can cinema them yourself. Like, I think you could very easily build an FD prime cinema lens set on a budget. So that's definitely something to think about. The important thing is you've got a relatively soft lens with a full frame camera, and that's gonna get you on the right track. But now we've got to think about lighting control. I mean, how are we going to have all of our lights built into the set and be able to control them independently? Well, I can't exactly tell you that because I don't know the exact thing you're trying to shoot. But what I can say is this: there are a handful of different mounts that you can use, like Varipoles or wall spreaders, that's going to get you most of the way there. You can also use magnets to attach lighting tubes to the ceiling, and using LED light bulbs that are made by like Nanlite or Aperture, and you're gonna start to get some of those film lights built into your set, or at least hidden in your set. Then if you say, okay, I'm either gonna shoot all Aperture and Amaran or all Nanlite, then you're able to control all of your lights with an app. Now, I think personally, Aperture and Amaran lights are the strongest vote for this because they work with the Sidus Link app, and I think that's the most developed app, and it's currently being used on professional sets. So if you're gonna do this, I would try to stick to Aperture and Amaran lights and use the Sidus Link app. That's gonna give you independent control. You'll have your lights mounted on a Varipole, wall spreader, or taped to the ceiling, however you decide to do it, and you'll get pretty close to this kind of setup. Now, the big trick here is that this probably makes the most sense if your whole story is taking place in one location. Recently, I was on a shoot and we basically set up the entire outside of the window to be able to create different looks of lighting simply by just changing things on an app. And we were able to do that because we were only in this one room for the entirety of the shoot. So you're really gonna put a ton of time into the prep when it comes to these sort of setups. But then once the prep's done, you're gonna be good to go and you'll be able to move around freely and change the look however you'd like. And I think that is gonna create a ton of efficiency for your shoot. But at the end of the day, I think the most important thing when you're trying to recreate the bear or create something similar is that you look at your cinematography and ask, how can it enhance the story? I know I touched on it, but I'm gonna say it again because cinematography is the capturing of the story. It's the lighting and the composition decisions you make to capture that story best. A cinematographer who comes in and says, I want to create this look, so this is what we're going to do that, and doesn't take into account at all the story that he or she is shooting, I think is going to struggle as a cinematographer, and ultimately those projects are probably not going to land as well as you might prefer them or as you might want them to. But I think a cinematographer who comes in and says, okay, this is the story, this is the images that my director is seeing, this is, how we're gonna frame this is the feel that we're looking for, and then lights and composes and chooses equipment to match that vibe, I think that cinematographer is going to be very successful. In fact, if you listen to anyone who shoots movies professionally, they'll tell you that they're constantly there with the director, comparing references, talking about looks, feel, other movies that they love, to get on the same page for what they want the visual look and feel of the movie to be. And all of that is based around the story. So don't forget that as you're trying to recreate the bear. Just by recreating the bear, you're not going to be an amazing cinematographer. I think you've got to think about, what story am I actually trying to tell, and how does the look that I'm building enhance that story? So let me know if you have watched season 3 of The Bear. If you're interested in other cinematography breakdowns like this, I've made a couple others that are here on screen. And don't forget, none of this means anything if you don't get out there and do something with it.